So tell everybody a little bit about your background, and then let's kind of go into a scenario that is a real scenario for a lot of the people listening if they represent buyers and sellers.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, so I actually kind of grew up in the business. And a little quick typo, I'm a California real estate broker, although I have been to the state of Florida.
Oh, I'm sorry,
But
California, my fault.
that's okay. That's all right. And I actually grew up in the Bay Area, Mission, San Jose, Fremont, kind of the Silicon Valley, helping my dad build custom homes. Actually, some not necessarily, I would say luxury, but very high-end homes, nice homes in Mission Hills and kind of all around the Bay Area. So I grew up learning about the sticks and bricks of real estate, learning about how to be an entrepreneur, owning your own business. And so I fell in love with real estate at a young age. And I went to college and I studied business as well as, had a chance to play basketball in college. And I love the game of basketball. And I took an internship at a company called Marcus & Millichap. And when you're going to college, you don't know you're going to be in sales or service or really even selling. I didn't know that was going to be my calling to consult and help people with making big decisions with their real estate needs as well as their financial futures. But that's where I found myself at Marcus & Millichap. And for those who don't know what that is, it's a commercial real estate brokerage. It's specializing only on investment property. And this was in 2006, so things were going pretty well. Market was high, low inventory, prices were up, lots of people doing lots of 1031 exchanges. And we found ourselves in a position where I was learning a lot, but I was brand new in the business. Like I was 20 something, just trying to make it, trying to survive and trying to learn from some amazing mentors. And so we learned about a thing called a 1031 exchange, and that was cool and everything for investment property. But the challenge was we found that people were starting to overpay for properties. And I went from making a little bit of money and then 2008 hit to making next to almost nothing overnight. I mean, it was a very, very, let's say, humbling time in my life. So I grew up in the Bay Area. Part of that's part of my story. My dad with quite a bit of wealth, but the other part was my parents were divorced when I was young, Michael. And I went from being with a lot of wealth to next to almost no wealth. And in fact, I lived with my mom about 85 to 90% of the time and spent about 10% of the time with my dad. But my dad didn't necessarily, let's say, pay the child support as maybe perhaps he should have been. So that was kind of not a good thing. So I knew at a young age, I wanted to make sure that financially I'd succeed and be able to support my family and not have that come in between us. But I found myself in about 2009, kind of like broken down financially, newly married, baby on the way, and really struggling. And so I did what every good entrepreneur or real estate wannabe does, perhaps. You get a side job hustle. And during this side job hustle time of my period of my life, I went to a place called Cheesecake Factory, and I served as a server there. And I did that for 2 years. We also moved in with my brother into a small condo. And I always tell this part of the story because everyone's starting somewhere, Michael, right? Whether in their real estate career, whether they're just getting into luxury real estate, or whether they're financially secure, we all have a story from somewhere. And that's where the birth of what we're going to talk about came. Because while I was going through those struggles, so were my clients. You see, my clients had overpaid with the 1031. They had too much debt, not enough liquidity, not enough diversification. They knew they were overpaying in the 04, 05, 06, 07 market. And then the music stopped and they had too much debt. And the reason they were overpaying that we identified was a 1031 exchange. Right?
All
So
right.
they had the equal or greater value. Go ahead.
So real quick, I just want to, for those of you that are just tuning in, today's guest, we're going to talk about providing solutions to escape capital gains tax. So in many markets, the luxury market is the hottest it's ever been, including the Chicagoland market. But there's certain properties, there's certain price points where it's still difficult. We call that a buyer's market. It's still difficult to sell those properties. And so I specifically have Brett on today to talk about a possible solution for your clients, if you represent a seller, to alleviate some possible objections from selling. So in a minute, we're going to talk about a property that we toured last week in Napa. Brett did, along with me and 70 other agents and brokers from across the country. And the one particular property is on the market for 18 million, and they paid 8 million. So there's there's $10 million in potential capital gains that they'll pay on. So keep it real simple. And 33% of capital gains tax on 10 million is 3.3 million. And under the current administration, they might want to raise that to what is it, 53%?
Correct.
And so that would be another 20% or another 2 million in taxes. So you might have a seller that does their net proceed sheets or talk to their CPA, and they might say, it doesn't make sense. I'd rather give it away. I'd rather gift it away than sell. And I've had those conversations with sellers. So if that is a scenario that you've had or you might have in the future, you want to have, we call it silver platter service. We want you to be able to deliver something different and unique and articulate it. So A, you win the client over. B, you have this asset that you can move, you can sell by providing a different solution. So that's why Brett's on here. I just interrupted him, but I want him to continue on. But that is a scenario that is a real life scenario for many high net worth individuals that own multiple properties, whether it be their primary residence or an investment property or a lake house or, you know, their jet set destination property. And so with that being said, Brett, I'll turn it back over to you, but I just wanted to set the stage again for those that jumped on late or maybe didn't understand why, again, Brett's on. Again, if you have a high-end property, a unique property, a luxury property, and you have a seller that their eyes light up when they figure out after they talk to their CPA what they're actually going to net after taxes, this might be a possible solution for you.
Yes, thank you, Michael. And it's a great point that folks, they feel trapped by the capital gains tax, and there's many who won't sell. Literally, that's becomes the number one objection for most sellers that we meet with. In fact, they call us directly, Michael. They call us from all over the country now, right? They call us from Colorado on a $2 million deal. We just closed an 8.3 in Palo Alto, a 7.9 in Santa Cruz. We're working on deals in New York and New Jersey. And we haven't done a deal in Chicagoland yet, but we're doing a $50 million deal in Texas. We're doing deals all over the country. And so let me go back and just set the stage and finish that story, and then we'll dive right into the nuts and bolts on this thing.
Yeah.
So that's where people were in 2009, 10, and 11. So I was negotiating with banks. I was by day, I'd be cold calling Marcus and Milchap, working 60, 70-hour weeks, and by nights and weekends, I'm keeping the lights on at home just to support the family. And so people are saying, go get a real job. What are you doing? But I said, no, I love real estate. And they said, well, but you have a wife and a kid at home. Like what? I'm like, well, I'll move in with my brother. We'll do whatever it takes. My wife was a saint. She says, you know what? I believe in you and what you're doing, and I know you're getting great coaching and great mentors. So just keep it going. And so literally we did that. And I was at Marcus and Milchap for 5 years and had some of the best coaching and training. And during that period of time where my clients were struggling, my manager brought in a gentleman who's now my business partner. He played for the 49ers. He's a financial advisor. And he told us about something called a Deferred Sales Trust. I think in every great story, there's some kind of guide or some kind of mentor that brings a new epiphany or a new idea or a new strategy, which is a part of what you do so amazingly when I had a chance to get the Lux designation, right, over the weekend, because over the week, because you've been there before, right? And you've seen it. And when you can teach people how to do this, it unlocks a new potential in them. And this is what he did for me. So he taught us about this thing called a Deferred Sales Trust. And like most people listening just for the first time, especially as an agent, you're going, I've never heard of it. Or you think it's a Delaware statutory trust, which is not. They're both DSTs. A Delaware and a 1031, those are 1031 exchange. I call those the blockbuster way of doing things. Those are transactional way of doing things, okay? And transactional way of doing things are fine for most people. But I like to work on something called transformational exit planning. And this is what the Deferred Sales Trust brings. And it's like the Netflix way of doing things. You see, with the blockbuster way of doing things, the 1031, it does not work for primary homes. Does not work for businesses. Does not work for cryptocurrency. Okay. Certainly doesn't work for luxury primary homes, right? Which is probably honestly the number one person or family that we can help out because they've lived in that home for 5, 10, 20, 30 years. In fact, I'll tell you about a couple deal stories right now. We just closed a deal in Silicon Valley in Palo Alto for a gentleman who had bought the property, actually built the property, and he had around a $6 million basis, and he's selling for about $8.5 million. You see, he's single, and he has what's called the 121 exclusion. If you lived there 2 of the last 5 years, the government gives you $250,000 tax-free. If you're married, $500. But above and beyond that, guess what? The 1031 exchange does not qualify. You're hit with capital gains tax. In the state of California, it's 13.3, and then you have federal of 20. So that's how you get the 33%, okay? So he's about to pay, on that scenario, was about $800,000 or so in tax. If it wasn't for this Deferred Sales Trust, guess what? We would not have closed the deal. The realtor would not have got the commission, right? And it would not have happened. He could not sell because he had so much debt. and so much tax that it would have been a no deal. It would have been just blew up the whole deal. So back to the story a little bit, and then we'll keep going here. So I learned about the Deferred Sales Trust. I started to apply it to my business. I started talking about it. A lot of people just said, too good to be true too. I don't know if it's going to work. My CPA should have known about it. But I kept applying, and I believe in this Deferred Sales Trust was the future. But during that time, the marketplace was so depressed, people didn't have a lot of gains. They said, you should have called me 5 years ago or 3 years ago, or maybe I'll consider it in the future. But I just kept talking about it and started in sending referrals to my business partner. Now, fast forward over 6 years, I spent at the time, over 10,000 hours with the tax attorneys who provided this. I'm not a CPA. I'm not a tax attorney, right? I'm not the financial advisor. I'm the trustee. And so we actually coach and train agents on how to do this. And then second, we actually, advise and help clients who are closing on this Deferred Sales Trust. My business starts to grow. Fast forward 5 kids now. My wife and I married over 12 years. She's been able to stay home full time with our kids and raise our kids, which has been our dream. We've been able to support the family. So it's literally changed everything for me. Why? I took a step out on something that was new, that I had never heard of before, but I believe the vision that it could help my clients get out and escape feeling trapped by capital gains tax. So now fast forward over the last 4 years, we train and coach and help people. We've closed literally 7 deals in the last 60 days. This is how busy we are, okay? And the more and more deals come. But the biggest thing is people are faced with 30 to 50% in capital gains tax and depreciation recapture on the sale of their houses or their investment property, because houses don't have depreciation right on a primary home. So really step one is just identifying what is the capital gains tax for this particular house. And so I think we should dive into the samples if you're ready, Michael.
Yep.
You have just listened to another information-packed episode of Capital Gains Tax Solutions with Brett Swarts. We hope you enjoyed today's show and found it helpful. Visit capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to access the show notes and to access more resources. Don't forget to leave a review and join us again next time.